Welcome. Thank you very much for coming to this fourth meeting of our contact group on Venezuela. I'll say a few words and then turn the floor to Minister of Costa Rica for his introductory remarks as well. First of all, I would like to warmly welcome Panama to the group, to this first meeting we have together in the International Contact Group. And we really believe that the reinforcement of the participation of the region in our group is extremely important, because we've always intended to support a regional solution and ownership in the region. Today, I suggest that we use this meeting in New York to review the latest developments in the country and also to review our work since we last met in San Jose and discuss also the possible next steps we can take together. In spite of international efforts, notably by Norway, to help reaching an inclusive political agreement among national actors, the political situation in the country in Venezuela remains blocked. The political crisis and the economic collapse in Venezuela is taking a very heavy toll in the population, and over 4 million people have already fled the country. This has obviously a tremendous impact on the rest of the region, source of instability. We're also seeing a very worrying human rights situation, as reported by the High Commissioner for Human Rights. We are currently working very closely in Geneva with our office and within the Human Rights Council to ensure that we follow up on the recommendations of the High Commissioner Bachelet. The European Union welcomes the recent release from prison of the Vice President of the National Assembly and stresses that all other political prisoners arbitrarily detained should be also released. There is a multi-dimensional aspect of the crisis that requires a very urgent political solution through a peaceful, negotiated, democratic and Venezuelan-owned process leading to free and fair presidential elections. But as we discussed several times in our previous meetings, to be credible, negotiations have to be representative and present a real perspective of a return to democracy and rule of law in Venezuela. The National Assembly, as a democratically elected body, needs to be a central actor in this process. We shall continue intensifying our outreach to promote a better articulation of the international community towards an inclusive, negotiated electoral path, able to restore democracy, rule of law and human rights. Since we met last time in San Jose, as you know, I have appointed Enrique Iglesias, who is with us today as my special advisor, to help us in this daily work. I want to thank him for, first of all, having accepted this and also for the good work we've, I think, started to do together. Enrique was in Caracas last July. He met with all relevant actors at the highest level, starting with Juan Guaido, Nicolas Maduro, as already reported to you, and he participated in the meeting of the Lima Group in Buenos Aires and at the International Lima Conference that was held in August. I've also been engaging personally. I've continued my discussions on Venezuela with different interlocutors, from the United States to Russia and China, from the Vatican to Cuba. I visited just some 10 days ago the region, Mexico, Cuba and Colombia, discussing about Venezuela. And today's meeting with CARICOM and next Wednesday with the Lima Group are, I think, very important, and we should follow up on these meetings as well. The statements, the joint statements that have been issued also are an important way to pass our messages in a united and public manner. Let me say one word on the humanitarian side, because I think the situation is dramatic there and requires a very urgent action. According to credible sources, the number of people in need may rise up to 14 million people, which is an impressive number if we think of that. As a consequence, the Venezuelan migration and refugee crisis is also reaching very alarming levels, is expected to further aggravate if the political situation and economic situation is not addressed. On a more positive note, there is improvement on the humanitarian space. The operating conditions for humanitarian actors are slightly improving. However, significant constraints remain present, reducing the capacity of the humanitarian organizations working on the ground, especially international NGOs, to provide support to those that are in need. And I think we should be, on one side, proud of what we have been doing together with United Nations agencies, with humanitarian agencies, to allow them to enter the country, to deliver assistance to the population. But also, I think we should be very much focused on continuing and sustaining this work in the weeks to come. I think it is important to maintain our engagement towards the depoliticization of humanitarian aid, improvement of access and operating conditions for humanitarian actors in the field. The humanitarian crisis, the migrant crisis, both inside and outside the country, I think is still little visible compared to the magnitude it has. Also for political reasons, there is clearly an intention from the regime side to silence this problem that we are clearly seeing. According to the UNHCR, it is one of the most underfunded humanitarian appeals in the world. We have mobilized resources to a very high level, but I think we need to mobilize additional financial support, including to respond to the regional effects of this crisis and to help the host countries. In Europe, we know something about how heavy this can be. So we remain, as European Union, strongly engaged in addressing the humanitarian and migratory crisis. We provide around 150 million euros in this year. We will co-host, at the request of the UNHCR and the IOM, an international solidarity conference on the Venezuelan refugee and migrant crisis in Brussels. This will be in the very last days of my mandate. Then I will be happily passing the responsibility to lead also on this file to someone that is here with us today, to Josep Borrell. In Brussels on the 28th and 29th of October, we will have a ministerial level event aimed at raising awareness about the crisis, reaffirming political support, and also calling for increased assistance of the international community. I would like to conclude by recalling the urgency and the importance of our action. I think that our engagement matters and it can make a difference, so we must continue, I think, on the path we have started together. We've set up in these months, and most importantly, not forgetting that this is a crisis that is still ongoing and that requires international mobilization and unity of purpose. I will now pass the floor to Manuel.